Hey, everybody. It's time for another installment of What Is It Wednesday? And today, talking about executive orders. What is an executive order? I mean, every president signs them, and every time one drops, a third of the country cheers, a third panics, and a third can't even be bothered to know what it is. But here's the thing most people don't actually know what an executive order really is. How is it different from proclamation or memorandum or all those secret directives that nobody really talks about? And if you don't know the difference, you might mistake an executive order for a permanent law. And an executive order can disappear with a stroke of the next president's pen. But it's easy to get confused with something like that. I mean, even the phrase executive order sounds pretty absolute. I mean, it is presidential power written down, but the truth is more complicated. An executive order is just one kind of presidential order, and presidents have a whole range of them. Executive orders are more formal. They're numbered, official, and they're published for everyone to see. But then there's proclamations. These are sometimes ceremonial, sometimes history shaping, like the Emancipation Proclamation that President Abraham Lincoln signed after the Battle of Antietam. Then there's memoranda. They're less formal, but they still carry weight with governmental agencies. Then there's national security directives. These are often secret and deal with national defense or foreign policy. And then there are findings. That's the president's way of quietly signing off on covert missions, really. But together, people tend to lump all these things under what's called, quote, executive actions. Because here's the thing. The Constitution never specifically mentions the phrase executive orders. But that authority comes from Article 2, the, quote, executive power, and the duty to, quote, take care that the laws be faithfully executed. George Washington issued proclamations. Lincoln used wartime orders. But by 1907, the United States federal government started numbering them, reaching all the way back to Lincoln's wartime orders. So what can they really do? Well, they're supposed to carry out laws or clarify existing laws. They cannot make new laws. That's supposed to be the line. And the courts can strike them down, just like President Truman's failed executive order to take control of the steel mills in 1952. But then Congress can come back and override the courts with legislation, thus making it a permanent law. What are some other famous EOs? Well, Truman desegregated the military, Eisenhower enforced school integration, Nixon froze wages and prices, FDR used them to mobilize industry and in turn Japanese Americans. They can be powerful, controversial, official, but also fragile. Because again, they're not like permanent laws. On average, presidents issue about 40 of them a year. And that number hasn't changed much, which sounds impressive until you remember most of us send about 40 texts before coffee. So what's changed the stakes in all this? Well, once they were administrative, again, like I said previously, they were supposed to clarify existing laws, not create new ones. But now, with Donald Trump, they're partisan weapons. They're pulled out every time Congress can't or won't act, which is most of the time given the partisan nature of our politics. Congress being stuck, it's not exactly new news. At this point, it's kind of the only tradition that's left in Washington, D.C. I mean, Obama created DACA with it. Trump reversed it. Biden reversed Trump. And back and forth policy by the stroke of the pen. That's executive orders. And that's the paradox of executive orders. They can change history, but they can also vanish overnight. They live in the space between law and politics, between power and limits. In the end, an executive order is just the president telling the government what to do. It only holds if it fits under the Constitution or the authority Congress has already handed over, or what the courts say they do. Because if you step outside of those lines, well, the courts are supposed to knock it down. So the next time you see a president sign one with a big flourish and hold it up for the world to see, remember, it's not long, but it's also not nothing. It's one of the sharpest, most fought over tools of presidential power. And maybe the only kind of government paperwork Americans actually notice. Anyway, that's all I got for you. Keep the faith, defend democracy, and I'll see you later.